Hello and welcome to today's panel discussion, Storage Solutions, Counting Systems and AIVs, how to optimize production flow. If you don't know what you have or where it's located, you can't achieve just-in-time manufacturing, and you lack the flexibility to handle a volatile supply chain. This panel will discuss the biggest revolution in materials handling in recent years. I'm joined today by Aurelio Delgado from Omron, Robert J. Black, or Bob Black as we know him, from Essegi Automation, and Ben Khoshnood from Inovaxe. So welcome, gentlemen. Nice to see you today. I'm going to start off my very first question, which is, what are the key benefits of having a humidity-controlled storage system next to or near the line? And I'll give that to you first, Bob.
Well, you know what, if people are using a lot of MSD components, having the storage tower near the line gives you the possibility to hold those components longer, pull your kit on the non-MSD parts, and then maybe 15 to 20 minutes before production, the tower will automatically pull the MSD parts in the kit to be loaded. And that way the exposure time is minimized. But also automatic tracking of the MSD life of each component. So when it leaves the tower, we start the clock. When it returns to the tower, we stop the clock. When the part is getting near expiration, we warn the customer. We can recommend baking. And we have a new software that also can integrate with a baking oven to monitor the baking process and then reset the clock on that reel when it returns to the tower. So it just takes the manual part of managing MSD out of the picture and makes it automatic.
Right, I agree. So Ben, would you agree with that the basically reducing the amount of time that these sensitive components are exposed to humidity is one of the key issues here?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really important to separate storing MSD component versus non-MSD component in a separate area, because when you combine them together, you have you increase the number of frequency that the door or to that cabinet or to that tower opens up and closes, which makes it very difficult maintaining the moisture level inside that cabinet. So by separating the MSD component to a separate tower or system and keep that directly at the line, and in many cases not even kit that at all, is something we think the customers benefited immensely. And of course, with our approach to the MSD, we have isolated hives. So when you open the compartment to access to a component, you only increase the moisture in that area that you want to bring the product out, and it doesn't affect the rest of the component, which really helps maintaining the integrity of the data related to moisture level much more accurately. And that would be our recommendation: keep it as close as you can to the line, and don't kit it, and have the operator access it. But of course, using intelligent software that knows that that particular part is MSD, and it would light up a location for them at the line to look for that part.
Right, okay. Aurelio, are there any other additional benefits of having one of these humidity-controlled storage systems?
I would say that, from the robotics point of view and the automation point of view, just reducing labor and having more flexibility as, the manufacturing environment changes faster and faster, right?
Yeah, so, which ultimately limits the, or reduces the amount of machine downtime on the line.
Yes, it reduces downtime, and it just allows manufacturers to have more flexibility when planning or repurposing their floors.
Okay, and of course the other big one, Bob, is going to be the actual control you have over your inventory. You actually know where everything is. I think
that's very true.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you some time ago now about a particular customer that you went into who saved an awful lot of money just by finding out exactly what he had.
Well, we just had a very interesting case with one customer where we now notify the supplier of components automatically. When a reel leaves the tower, there's a daily tally sent to each of 5 different vendors, component distributors, and they ship automatically back to the customer. And of course, purchasing is copied with a copy of it, but it's all automatic. So the tower is actually not just dispensing the parts; it's reordering the parts automatically when they've left, and they've got an agreement with these suppliers that they will overnight the replacement reels.
Right.
So for them, they're minimizing the stock on hand and being able to still respond quickly.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, another key part of this is of course the on the traceability is to maybe have a component counter in this solution. So you've got the component counter, you've got the storage system, and and you might have the robotics as well to be able to get the materials to the line. But do you think each of these storage systems, should be paired with a component counter, Bob?
No, we don't believe that you should have a counter for each storage system. As you saw or you'll see in the pictures upcoming, we do blocks of towers. So you may have a block of 10, 15, 16 towers storing components. And one component counter can service all those towers. And with our handling system, we can do a variety of things. So when a new part is received, we can automatically count it and check it and correct the inventory total. If we have a situation where parts are being returned from the line after a job is completed, we can count all those reels before they're put back into stock. And right now we integrate with the Nordson component counter, but we have several other component counter manufacturers which are looking to make units with the same interface that will be able to dock with our material handling system. And also we can have, in the case of one customer we've done, the Omron AIV will go pick up parts at one block and take it to another block that has a counter, count them, and then take them back, all without people. And this can be done during downtime. So if you've got some downtime in third shift, right, the counting can be done then, and when you come in the morning, the results are done. So we've automated the situation quite extensively.
Right. Okay. Ben, would you agree that I think it's quite right what Bob says, that you don't need to have a counter on every tower, obviously, or every line. You just need one within the factory space. I mean, but do you think it's important to have that within each factory?
Yeah, totally. I think this is a perfect example of the past process and the problems of the past. Is really when you implement the intelligent systems such as the companies in this panel have, really drastically changes the need for counting. When you are directly talking to the machines, you know exactly when they place an actual component on the board, how many they use. You can get a really very accurate count of the remaining parts on that reel. So the counters becomes really good when you want to do an audit, perhaps, and or when your requirement that you're having gets close to what the system says you have on hand. And at that point, you can send a list of components for the operators to count. Really not necessary when you implement intelligent systems, such as the one that Bob's company and Inovaxe has, to count every single reel that goes through. That becomes a very, very small portion of that.
Right. Okay. So let's see, Aurelio, what advantages can AGVs or AIVs bring to the production process? And before you answer that, I'm going to bring up one of your images that shows the system that is being used by Omron.
So, in terms of terminology, we wouldn't really call this one an AGV. This will be more AMR, either, AMR or AIV. AMR stands for Automated Mobile Robot, and AIV stands for Autonomous Indoor Vehicle. So either two of those apply here, and pretty much this takes the concept of the AGV into next level, because it makes you much more flexible in your operations, right? You don't need to make any factory modifications. You don't need to have navigation beacons. You just need to tell the robot or show the robot where to go by mapping the floor of your factory. So that's the idea here. Instead of having to put tape in the floor, or instead of having to do physical modifications to the floor, you can bring the robot in, you can map the floor, you can give the robot goals to where to go and where to do the task. And then you actually have the option to have multiple robots at the same time talking to each other to see who can do the task in a more efficient manner.
Right. So
benefit.
Yeah. So essentially what it's doing is it's intelligently navigating its way around the factory floor using LiDAR sensors and things like that.
Sensors, it has its own host where the robots communicate to each other. Benefits for the customers means, reducing machine downtime, reducing labor costs, increasing, like you said, like Bob mentioned before, you have more transparency in your inventory, you have better traceability, and really, like I also mentioned before, you have more flexibility when planning the floor, when repurposing machines, when, even when you want to create a new layout, having the flexibility of a robot, being able to adjust to it, it's very critical for customers.
Right. Okay. And Bob, in this example we're looking at here, these robots are going in and basically bringing out a full kit, to kit each machine. Is that the way it works?
Well, both actually both. It can do a number of things. Full kits are the primary purpose, where it will pull the full kit and deliver it to the setup area at the line automatically. It can also pull the parts in the order that you want them, so that can be done. But in the case of this customer, and in the case of many of our customers, we're linked with the pick and place line. And most pick and place machines today, regardless of manufacturer, have the capability to set a low reel warning. So when a reel gets to 400 parts or 500 parts remaining, it can automatically warn and say this reel is getting low. And in this situation, the warning goes directly to the control system in the towers, and we pull those parts that are short, and a robot will take them directly to the machine on the line where they're needed. And so the part can be spliced, or another feeder can be loaded and hot swapped before the part runs out. And so you avoid line downtime. And that used to be a big problem for this particular customer. They used to, when a reel ran out, somebody had to run to the stock room, get another reel. The line might be down 10 minutes, right? Yeah. Well, when you're running lines with 270, 280,000 CPH, that's a lot of money, 10 minutes sitting, not doing anything.
And that was always that was always the big hidden cost in these factories. A lot of the managers would be asking, well, how efficiently are we doing? And there was the production manager would be saying, well, our first pass yield is 98 or 99.5%, and he'd think we were doing pretty well, but he wasn't taking into account the machine downtime.
Yeah, one customer in Mexico that we did several years ago, they bought the towers based on labor costs. Pulling kits, just the labor for pulling kits and putting other parts away. And they were shocked after the first quarter to find that they'd increased the productivity of their line 9%. And that was based on the fact that we were automatically supplying the parts before they ran out, and nobody had to run around looking for a part to reload. So yeah, it can be a big savings for the customer.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ben, your system works, I guess, a little bit differently because your storage system's at the line essentially. So you're using an at-line system, but in some cases using a robot to bring inventory to the line. Do you want to show us a quick sample of what?
By the way, Trevor, excellent point. One of the main differences between the way Inovaxe solves the material challenge for the manufacturers is we believe in distributed inventory systems rather than centralized. And we really try to focus on simplicity and minimizing noise in factories. And that's really the area that I spend a lot of time making sure that is part of every single part that we design. As you see, what we have developed, of course, this particular unit has been implemented in a ultra high volume line. This is a customer has many surface mount line, and they build a lot of product. And as you see, this particular smart storage system sits right by the machine between the two SMT equipment, both in the front and the back side of the machine. And this side provides replenishment function to the table on the right machine, and that side provides the other side. And there is a interface on the top that provides directions to the operator. For example, when a part gets low, we get a signal, we light up the display, and we put an arrow on the top indicating which side, which machine needs parts, and we light up the location of the part that they need to take. And all the operator needs to do is just grab that part, replenish, splice the new reel, and they're done. But the real unique thing about this is that in a very small footprint, it's basically no more than 15 inches this way and less than 24 inches this way, you hold over 360 7-inch reel. So when you multiply that by number of the machine in front and back, you can store a lot of material directly on the line. But the most important thing is you reduce your WIP to 1, and also eliminates the need of going back and forth to a central location. One particular customer is in the process of totally eliminating or substantially reducing their stock room, and have their stock room basically distributed between their lines without actually changing the spacing between the lines as well. So, and of course, we also use AGV in this application, except it minimizes the traffic quite a bit. So we really focus on the process side and using our approach of a distributed inventory system. These directly comes from the receiving area. The moment they get their unique ID, they get loaded into these carts, and AGV brings them directly to the line. And they probably don't need to replenish that cart for another 10 to 20 days, depending on the number of the speed of the their placements and the number of the products that they build.
Well, I'm impressed with what you've come with here with the development, but in our case, the customer we saw earlier, that cart would be consumed in a day. So the volumes are that high. And I want to correct one thing you said. Maybe we gave the wrong impression. There is not one central set of towers for inventory. This particular customer in this plant location has 9 separate tower blocks in different buildings in different locations to distribute.
I think it's fair
and
to
we
say
are
that
servicing multiple lines out of this. So our longest trip, to give you the abilities of the Omron AIV, the longest trip is 0.7 kilometers from the stock to the line. So it's not a trivial trip. And
you're
but
absolutely
the
right.
most important thing is we eliminated the need for about 35 full-time sorters of components, people. They could go to box builder, they could go to other jobs, because the delivery of the parts is totally automatic, and the accuracy of the parts are 100% guaranteed because there's no manual handling. We read the barcode every time the machine's handle, and there's complete traceability, including photographs of when the part was received, when it went to the line. Everything is done without people. And that's probably the biggest advantage we have these days with labor costs going up. Our machines never need a vacation. They don't need a break, and they don't need a pay increase. So that's probably our biggest advantage.
Yeah, I think we, you know, there are many different cases, different application. Our approach here is based on eliminating stockroom. It doesn't matter if it's centralized or non-centralized. That's really the approach that we've taken in that approach.
Yeah, it's an innovation. That's for sure. And some customers, I'm sure, will find that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, both the systems that you're talking about today are distributed systems. We're not talking about a central stockroom. A central stockroom is in one location. As you quite rightly say, Bob, your towers are there's usually 3 or 4 of them at least in factories, and so it is a kind of form of distributed system. So. Are the benefits greater for high mix or high volume manufacturers? Who wants to start with that one?
I'll take that if that's okay. So material is interesting. Everybody, this has been one of the most neglected part of the manufacturing process till recently, till the likes of the towers and the smart cards and AMI and various new tools got developed. And if you really think of it, material is the bloodline of the factory. It's worse than electricity, right? When electricity goes off, you have other options. But when material goes off, you got to wait till next day or 2 days later to get the parts into the factory and get the factory up and running. And it doesn't just impact one area. It just doesn't impact the number of the people in the stock room or OEE of the equipment. In the high mix environment, especially, the president of the company all the way down to the material handler, they're material expediter based on yesterday's technology. And everybody spends so much time chasing material. So when you look at the impact of the smart solutions that Essegi and Inovaxe bring and Omron brings to the table, it really impacts the whole operation from the management side to the purchasing side, to the freight cost, to OE of the equipment, to a number of the people you have running the line, number of people handling material. Bob had a perfect example, how eliminating 34 people, material handlers, and we've done similar type of things with our customers. So it impacts high mix quite a bit, and they have different challenges. High mix more cares about the setups and be able to get the machine up and running and having accurate inventory. And the high volume guys need more space and accuracy of replenishment and the speed of the replenishment. So it impacts them differently. But certainly they benefit immensely, both sides, and I would say the high mix probably benefit the most because they have the most difficult challenge on the material side.
Okay, Aurelio, would you concur with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the high mix side, like I said, you don't have to really make changes to the factory floor or the factory walls. So if you're either going to change the type of products that you're dealing with, or you can create a different route without really affecting any of the factory itself, right? So for high mix customers, the not having to worry about repurposing an old AGV or having to change the floors, it's significant. And that's one of the benefits of having an AMR with you, that, you know, if today you're done with this type of product or this type of machine or this specific customer, you can either repurpose the tower that you have or the topper that you have to accommodate the new parts, or simply create a new one and the robot is going to work the same way. You just have to map again the floor for the new purpose.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, it's an interesting one. You know, the high mix is the ones that are getting the more benefit from implementing these systems. But the truth of the matter is, it's a high volume guys who have been the first to do it.
Yes, the high volume guys generally have the volume of business and the cash available for investment in projects like this when they see a decent ROI. Now, of course, you've got to have an ROI with most companies of less than 18 months for them even to look at it. But let me explain a little bit the differences between a high mix and a high volume benefit from this type of automation. The high mix guys, as Ben said earlier, are pulling a lot of kits. But what wasn't mentioned is, because this is high mix, we're not doing a big volume of boards. We're doing a lot of boards of different types. So we are changing the reels. We're taking reels off the line, and we're replacing them with other reels for the next product. So these reels off the line, I have been in so many factories over the years, and I know, Trevor, you have too. And what do you see? You see plastic ESD bin boxes stacked around the company, full of reels of parts partially used, and people are running around frantically looking in these boxes because they're looking for the one reel that hasn't returned to the stock room yet, so it couldn't be added to the kit for the next job that's needed on the line.
Right.
And the advantage the towers give you is not just pulling the kits fast, but putting away the used parts fast. And if you've got an integrated counter, counting them when you come back to make sure you have the right quantity. Of course, we can communicate with a pick and place line through software, and we can say, how many did you use? And we can calculate that way. And that's pretty accurate these days. Placement machines know what they placed, they know what they mispicked. And you maybe have a little bit of components lost when you loaded the feeder, but that usually can be handled that's negligible enough. It may be 5 or 6 or 7 parts. So putting the parts away, and then you have them available to pull for the next kit immediately. So in most of our customers, you won't see bin boxes sitting around with parts waiting to be returned to stock, right? You'll see, because people have to handle that. In our situation, you just load them into the tower. The tower reads them coming back, can integrate with the component counter and do that. So for high mix, putting away the parts and pulling the kits is both the big advantage. In high volume, the situation is keeping line uptime. And as I mentioned with the customer earlier, with a 9% increase in productivity on the line, making sure the parts are there when they're needed, at the time they're needed. And not a lot of reels are coming back. Most reels are being exhausted and replaced with another reel. So because they may set up a line and run the same product for weeks before they change over to another product. So handling the volume of material and getting it to the line at the right time is important with a high volume, and with a high mix, it's pulling and putting away kits.
Right. That's a great explanation there, Bob. So thanks for that. Ben, I mean, where do the manufacturers gain the biggest advantage here? I mean, is it going to be from the more accurate inventory control, or from limiting the machine downtime?
Again, that's an excellent question. Most of the customers, when they think about investing into the intelligent systems, they're really focusing on first the area that they're focusing on, and that's the material kittings or replenishing the labor involved with that. But the reality is, when you get the inventory accuracy substantially higher, it impacts so many different areas of the company that is unbelievable. I've had actually large customers in West Coast, after implementing our system, sending us a letter saying that when we told them that we're going to reduce their labor by 90%, they said, okay, even if you do 50%, I'm still going to be in good shape. But it says, but after implementing your system, all those intangibles that we never included in ROI far exceeded what the labor saving we had on the direct material handlers. So indeed, the accuracy inventory would reduce the amount of time the purchasing spends buying parts. It benefits the number of the checks that the controller has to, the financial group has to write. It reduces the number of time that the receiver has to receive a part. It really impacts everything. And also the program manager dealing with their customers saying that why they can't deliver the material because they were short a part. So the impact is really increasing that accuracy, that inventory is substantially affect all aspects of the company.
Right. Okay. Aurelio, do you have any sort of, well, I would imagine you would think reducing machine downtime is going to be the biggest advantage for you.
Yeah, reducing machine downtime. And also, you know, at Omron, we look at automation as a way to allow companies to have their employees focus on more meaningful tasks. In this particular example, you know, you had an operator having to move these carts manually throughout most of his day. We don't really think that's the best use of talent. So, you know, it allows a company to, you know, have their employees focus on more meaningful tasks.
Right. Okay.
That's really the overall idea of Omron, that we have these automation solutions to improve manufacturing and improve the lives of the people that are doing these tasks that are not that fun to do.
Okay. Well, Bob, do you want to add anything to what we've discussed on that? I mean,
yeah, I think so. The sad thing about the state of most companies today in the electronics manufacturing business, whether it be an EMS company or whether it be an OEM company, are that their data they have on current inventory is not accurate, and they can't rely on it. And so what do? They buy 20% or 25% extra parts to make sure they don't run out. And then these parts are stocked around in the stock room. The fact is, as Ben said, if they have accurate information, they can make better business decisions. And they can do things like the customer we talked about, where as the parts are used, the tower actually is automatically ordering the replacements from the supplier without a person having to be involved. So yeah, that's a big advantage. Limiting machine downtime is an advantage too, because it means you don't need to buy as many machines. And maybe that's a sad thing to hear for the placement guys, but look, our job is to give the customer the best outcome possible. And so if running more efficiently means they can delay the next line purchase for another 6 months, so be it. You know, that's the thing. And you know, with today's focus on ROI, this has become more and more. And listen, if you're ordering 20% extra inventory, that's a lot of money you're tying up in your stockroom. With some of these companies, it's millions and millions of dollars.
Right. I mean, you know, one thing that I find difficult to understand is the actual size of the benefit for a manufacturer who has one of these automatic line systems in is huge. I mean, shouldn't everybody, you know, be implementing automatic line solutions? I mean, and at what point are they going to be forced to do it? Bob.
Oh, okay. You want me to lead off? Yeah, that's a good point, Trevor. The only problem is we probably can't manufacture fast enough to do everybody at once, but we would be happy to try. Look, this is a growing thing, but it's not an easy sell. It's a long cycle. The customer has to be convinced that the ROI figures he's going to achieve to pay for this, right, are accurate. And today, with the pandemic, you know, I wrote an article recently dealing with the results of the pandemic. And people are a big problem. Some people dropped out of the workforce, they haven't come back. I don't know how they're making ends meet, but they haven't come back. Hiring people today, it's hard to find good people. It's a lot of training involved. It's a lot of cost in turning people over. And so anything where labor can be relieved by automation. As Aurelio said earlier, this is key, and this will be more and more in the coming years. If you can do a job without people, and in our ROI calculations now at many customers, we're averaging between 9 and 12 months ROI, even for sophisticated systems such as what you've seen, just based on the labor savings primarily. I mean, the material efficiency helps too, but and line uptime certainly helps. But so as people become scarcer and the cost of people go up, this automation will be more and more adopted by companies.
We're more and more critical, I think. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And it reduces a lot of these repetitive tasks that allows you could freeze people up to go and do more interesting things in other parts of the factory. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Ben?
No, I think that was excellent. I think we are seeing that more and more people fully understands and accept that there's a huge difference between a metro rack carts that you put just a barcode label on it and call it your material storage system versus intelligent storage system. So people have already passed that point and it started looking into accepting the price tag shock. Because before, let's face it, nobody would have spent $10,000 or $100,000 for a shelving systems or a storage system for material. They would have spent $1 million on the surface mount equipment to squeeze another sub-seconds on the placement side. But the bloodline of their machine, they wouldn't spend any kind of money. But I think the customers have passed that point. And to Bob's point of people side, is absolutely spot on. What we have seen, actually, that's one of the effort that we are putting in place to start training more and more. And we're having a lot of luck with the Generation Z. We're hiring a lot of really young people to come to our industries. We're actually going to be announcing a 5,000 square foot facility that is dedicated to a demoing state-of-the-art material handling systems that is pegged and tied into the surface mount equipment. So we're actually going to have a line that dances with the intelligent storage systems, and we're also going to use that facility to train people for local industry, because we certainly see that the manufacturing is coming back to West, and we want to be ready for that.
Yeah, well, as Bob says, it's a continuing trend, and it's a growing market. So I'm sure there'll be a need for that new factory. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your questions, your answers, should I say, so far. It's been a great debate, and at this point, I think we're going to move over to the Q&A section and see if we've got any questions from our audience.
Ko-Young is leading a smart revolution that will change the world of electronics manufacturing. Based on our pioneering True 3D measurement-based inspection technology, we revolutionized the solder paste inspection market to such great lengths that 1 in 2 SPIs sold today is from Ko-Young. Building our SPI technology, we expanded to automated optical inspection, also known as AOI. Every year, we introduce new award-winning innovations and have proudly earned the respect from thousands of customers across diverse industries. Aside from our R&D center in Korea, we have research facilities focused on artificial intelligence and deep learning across the world to help us further develop proprietary AI technologies for your challenges. With our global network of sales and service centers, we aim to respond quickly to your needs and to deliver the highest level of customer satisfaction.
Global SMT and Packaging opens the windows of the world to bring you the latest news and technologies from Munich, from Bangalore, from Shanghai, from San Diego.